Hey guys, this video is an update to my rope solo setup. I've been doing rope solo for some years now, had a break with the lead rope solo climbing, but I always continued to do top rope solo climbing. This setup right here is for multi-pitch rope solo climbing, so this means I lead the first pitch, then I rappel down and remove all my gear, in this case for ice climbing, ice screws, and then the rope is already attached and I climb up again in top rope solo mode.
And then this is repeated from pitch to pitch.
So this basically means you have to bring gear for lead rope solo climbing and for top rope solo climbing. Yeah, this video doesn't have the purpose to be a full instruction on how to rope solo climb. There are a ton of other videos out there, and it's important to note climbing itself is dangerous, and especially if you do rope solo climbing where you are alone, it's even possibly more dangerous because only two eyes and one person checking everything. Yeah, it brings some advantages, but that's not a topic for this video. So at first I arrive at the climb and I have to climb up in lead rope solo mode. So the rope is already attached on the bottom of the climb. Anchoring is a completely different topic, so maybe I will talk about this in a different video. Now I'm using this thin rope by Edelried. It's 8.9 millimeters, so it fits easily. I stack this in a backpack. If I have a backpack with other stuff inside, I use a dry bag to put the rope inside, so when I pull it out, it doesn't pull out any other stuff. There is also the option to let the rope on the ground, but problem is you will have to pull it up. Then you use a rope grab to manage the slack and the rope pull. But I want to have a backup to the main device I'm using. And as a backup, I'm using stopper knots. And if you add stopper knots to a rope and you let it stay on the ground and pull up all the rope with the knots, it can happen, especially on ice climbs with icicles hanging somewhere, that the stopper knot will get stuck. And then you are lead climbing and it gets stuck somewhere and you can't do anything else than attaching yourself and going down. So I wanted to have it in my backpack. I prepared the rope by adding stopper knots, just simple slip knots. Important thing is one side is like the strong one I can pull and the knot stays closed. And the other side is the weak side, where if I pull here, the loop gets smaller and pop, the knot releases. So if this orientation is done wrong, the whole backup system will not work. And how strong those knots are as a backup is not known to me, but I guess they are strong enough. Maybe this is something for how not to, if they didn't already do a video about this. So I have this in this small backpack for this demonstration. So my backup system is a combination of quick links made from steel and the knots in the rope. So for them to be able to work as a backup, I attach them to my belay loop. And then I also add the rope inside. The loose rope from a backpack comes from below and exits to the top. Then I close those. Yeah, some people only use one screw link and this is probably fine. But you will see I also use them to manage my slack. There are other systems where people use a glove hitch and have big loops on the side or on the belay loop in front. But what I find problematic is with the big loops, which are hanging too low. If you do ice climbing and you have crampons, it's quite easy to get stuck to the rope or even kick and damage the rope. So I have these two screw links, and when I climb and my main device would fail, you see the knot comes close to the screw links and now it blocks. So this is what would hold me, hopefully. Of course, this knot will roll at some point, but it will need some force. I should probably do more research. But yeah, that's the backup system. To get it out, I just have to pull and the knot is out. Now for slack management, I will show you when I have made the full setup. So at first, backup is there. Now the main belay device is a Cricri Plus, because here you can adjust how the tension of the spring inside is. So I selected the top rope mode, so the spring is weaker and the device locks faster. Since it's possible to do a lead fall on this, I've selected a steel carabiner, a strong one from Petzl, and I also added 2 rubber things. I'm not sure, I think it's called Tanga by Petzl, and this avoids the Cricri to be able to slide to the side. And since the gate is a big tri-lock, you can also not slide over the gate. Now I attach this here. I'm not sure how I will prevent the steel carabiner from moving on the gear loop, but I will have to add something possibly. Problem is with these tangas, it's not easy to add something, but I will find a solution for this. There are some other carabiners made from aluminium, but they are most of the time weaker, and this is why I've selected this steel carabiner for this setup, but of course the setup maybe will change over time. Now the Cricri is attached like backwards. As a chest harness I use a sling. Best is to have this under the backpack. So let's remove this. It was enough with demonstration of the backup. So just like this, throw it over the head. And now I have this small DMM material carabiner, because they are super lightweight and still strong enough for things like this. It's not load bearing, so it doesn't hold my body weight. And now I have a loop on the Cricri, and with this carabiner I can hold this Cricri upright. I could even lock this. Alright, now I attach the Cricri. So I remove it from the steel carabiner, open it up, and now it's important to do the right orientation, because the rope, which is anchored on the ground, is like the climber side. If you mess this up, you will fall on the ground for sure. So attaching it, and this rope which goes to the backpack is like the brake hand side. So now I can check this. This is the rope going to the ground anchor. I pull here, the Cricri locks. Good thing is the screw links keep it in the right orientation to lock, just like your belayer would hold it. Of course, those screw links will not grab the rope, but it adds some friction as long as the rope goes to the backpack. And to get some slack, it's quite easy. At first I can take in slack. On my quick draws, sometimes I use these super small ones by Edelried just to save some weight, since rope solo climbing is quite weight intensive. And some quick draws are the normal Petzl ones, nice big ones, so if I'm exhausted it's quite easy to clip the rope. And I've added these rubber things from Avant Climbing, because they avoid the rope to slide back. I will show this real quick. So I can pull out slack, I can clip the carabiner, and with this I just pull the rope, and now it has got friction. So this is the rope which goes to the ground anchor, and now this is on tension. So at first it makes my ground anchor be pulled in the right direction, because it has to be facing up. And also when I'm climbing, this will avoid slack to form up, because it's possible if you don't have this here, the rope weight will pull slack and more slack, and when you are climbing you will not notice this. Alternative to this is just adding a rubber prosec, for example, that could rip if you fall, or to do a slip knot, but both are not as easy as these rubber things. So this is a super nice addition or invention from Avant Climbing. It's super nice. All right, so now if I would fall, the Cricri could hold me. If this fails, so the Cricri slips, for example, the friction here from the backpack and from the quick links could help it to lock. And if it fails completely and also the carabiner detaches, then I still have my stopper knots in the rope, which hopefully will hold. Now for slack management, when I want to climb and I see, oh yeah, I want to don't have to play around with the creakery too much, I can prepare the slack. For example, I can really easily take off the slack from the system, let a first loop hang, and now between these two quick links I can make a second loop, which is a bit bigger in this case, but yeah, I can slip a bit. And now from the backpack to the first quick link, I can make one more loop. And now, I'm not sure if you can see it on the video properly, the loops are not super long, but this is like 3 or 4 meters of rope. It's best if I select the length of these loops that I can still kick up without stepping in a loop and without stepping on the rope. And when I'm climbing, so this is the side, nice thing is these loops just slide and I don't have to feed out a slack because just from climbing, this rope which is attached to the ground will just pull itself until there is again the friction from the screw links and the rope rubbing on my body and the backpack. And then it gets stuck, but the easy thing is I can also grip this rope, throw down some slack, and now it runs again freely. Yeah, now here comes the knot. Sometimes they get a bit stuck on the backpack, but not a big problem. Just pull harder, and as soon as this comes close to the creakery, I just have to pull on this side and it releases the stopper knot. Of course, it's more annoying than just being belayed, because when you're belayed, you just have a tied in rope. You can just climb and concentrate on the climbing. And with this, you really sometimes have to make sure that you have the loose rope here and you have to work with this. And when there are some twists inside, it can be a bit annoying. But I have tried it out and it worked quite well. So I'm adding some footage of my latest ice rope solo climbing. Okay, so now maybe I have the right rope length until I reach the top, or my rope is even longer. But now I come close to the end, and on the end I already have a pre-tied figure 8 knot. You could also attach this to the belay loop, but then you have more loops and so on. So at least add a knot to the end, because in worst case, if I climb too far, this knot will be the last stopper knot, which I cannot remove easily, because this has to be a closed system, otherwise you can fall down. Now I attach this to the top of the climb. I could also use my personal anchor system to now clip into the anchor. This could be a tree, an ice anchor, or bolts or whatever. And now it's time to change to this descent system. You could use the creakery, but you need to change the orientation since this is the brake side. And usually I prefer to rappel with tube style device and a prosig. Now these screw links are a bit pain in the butt to remove, because they are small and you have to screw them, but they have to be small, otherwise the stopper knots will not get jammed up there. If you use a big carabiner, the stopper knots will just slide through and will not do that job. So yeah, let's assume I can stand safely, or I'm attached to the anchor, because now you can see this is the wrong orientation. So you really have to watch out and be super careful and not just attach yourself and then fall down. So yeah, let's remove the creakery real quick. Now I would select a tube device, and on my way down I will remove all my ice screws, all my slings and so on. Only on some areas I would keep a screw or a sling to avoid the rope to rub on edges. But on this ice climb where I was, there are not that many edges. And second reason to re-anchor the rope from time to time is the rope stretch. Because if you have like 60 or 70 meters of rope and you fall close to the ground, the stretch can be so much that you actually will hit the ground. even though you are attached on a rope and there's no slack inside, but with the stretch you could fall down. Yeah, with this sling around the neck, it's a strangulation hazard, so maybe it could be better to use something weaker. So if you get stuck somewhere, it will not choke you. But this is up to you, and this is not an instructional video, so don't climb alone with just watching this video. Now, before I attach my devices for top rope soloing, I address the topic of those chest harnesses that hold up the devices. Yeah, for the lead climbing part, I made this static one. Not sure if this is better than an elastic one. Yeah, but for the top rope part, I've made a elastic one to hold up the devices. And recently I bought this Avant climbing thing, which is made from shock cord. Okay, I just removed this static one for clarity, so it's easier to see for you. Now I have this red on red cord. And now let's talk about devices. So my main device is the Petzl micro traction. The nice thing is it has got a pulley and it slides up the rope super easy with only little friction. So don't need a lot of weight down here to make it slide up automatically. Yeah, if I do single pitch top rope soloing, I often use a thicker rope and a different device, the Tagline 3. I made a separate video about this, but this now is about the multi-pitch rope solo climbing. So yeah, I attached this with this nice big DMN anti-crossload carabiner from aluminium, so it's lighter, it will not crossload, it will stay in the right orientation. The micro traction cannot block in some fancy ways or be cross-loaded in any fancy ways. Now I attach this elastic lanyard, which will pull up the device. So as soon as there is enough weight of the rope itself, for example, down here, this will slide up automatically as soon as I climb up. It's super, super important not to rely only on one device. If I would only have one device, I would make sure to add a lot of stopper knots, but not a slip knot. I would use an overhand knot or even a figure of 8 and pull it relatively hard. So if this device fails, I could slide down. But now the thing is, if this device somehow breaks or unclips, you are not attached to the rope anymore, and yeah, the screw link could be an idea, but I prefer to use a second device, which I carry on a small DMM material carabiner. And then I use this big fat steel carabiner I used for the quickie before. Now I use the small material carabiner for the quickie. I just use the small material carabiner to save some weight because this bulky steel carabiner is super big. And now I can use this bulky steel carabiner just because I have it to attach the second device. It's important to always test the orientation of them independently to see that they are attached correctly. So now I have my two devices. So if one fails, I'm still attached with the other one. So that's quite nice. It's also important to make sure that you have a device down there which will block even if a different device will slide on it from the top. Because there are some devices, if you pull on them from the top, they will not lock. But yeah, I don't want to make this a complete video, so make sure to check the other channels. I will link Bliss Climbing, for example, down in the description. He's a super freaky guy doing a lot of rope solo work for the community and has got a ton of information out there. Now, two devices are quite safe, especially for ice climbing. It's super, super important to do even more backup because when it's wet and cold, water can freeze up the devices and possibly they don't lock. For example, if you use a hand ascender or also these devices, the water can freeze on the teeth, and the teeth are essential to help the blocking mechanism and to hold onto the rope. There are multiple incidents and also some videos out there of people showing their device which just doesn't work anymore because it got frozen up. And if you have two devices and one freezes, it's super likely that the other one will freeze too, because sooner or later also water will build up here or ice will build up there and both devices can fail. So from time to time you better make a stopper knot I mainly try to do a figure of 8. The thing is, sometimes I want to do them one-handed, so maybe they will look quite ugly. Could also do an overhand knot and pull it tight and don't make the loop too small, but also not too big. Yeah, I don't do a slip knot. Maybe this would be easier sometimes, but if you do it the wrong way, it will fail. And also you don't need to be able to release them quickly. So there is not that many reasons to do just a slip knot. You want to have this super safe. And of course, in best case for lead climbing, this would also be the preferable stopper knot. But removing this when lead climbing with one hand would be possibly more dangerous than just having a slip knot as a backup knot. But that's theory. So this is the backup knot. If both devices fail, I will slide to this knot and will still be attached with 2 of these devices. It's important to do a stopper knot early after the start, because if you forget it later, in the worst case, you will fall to your first stopper knot, and when this is far enough from the ground that with the rope stretch you will not hit the ground, then this one knot already avoids you to fall down when both devices are frozen up. This will be a long fall, you possibly will be injured or whatever, but it will not fall completely on the ground. Also make sure to add knots if you are over steps, for example, or over, sorry, I'm German, some words are just not there. So if there is a step and you climb over it, it's like how you think about the quick draws. You also do the same with the stopper knots in best case. Yeah, okay. Then when I'm back at the anchor on top of the climb, I can attach myself, or maybe I can stand safely. Then I can remove these. Okay, now I'm on the top of the climb. The rope is still down there. It's not attached to anything. And now I can start to pull up the rope. It's important to attach it somewhere. For example, to keep it attached to the anchor until you are done. And now I remove all the stopper knots. And this is now a reason why I use knots like the figure of 8. They can slide over an edge quite easy. With the Alpine Butterfly, for example, which I don't use as a stopper knot in this setup, you have the problem that the rope goes around, which is good for a stopper knot, but if you want to pull it up 60 or 70 meters off a cliff, this will more likely get stuck on an edge. Yeah, maybe this is personal preference, but this is why I like the figure of 8. It easily slides over edges and maybe it's less likely to get stuck somewhere. Also make sure to not make this loop too long, because these loops could also get stuck on an icicle, for example, and this would be annoying. Okay, in worst case you would need to rappel down and remove it. Yeah, so I pull the rope up and remove all the stopper knots. And then when I'm on the end, so this is, let's say this is my end, and I will again do my final knot, the figure of 8. And this will be on the bottom of my backpack, for example. And now I will do like 3 wide arm spans and add a stopper knot and stuff the rope back in the dry bag or in my backpack to prepare for the next pitch of lead climbing. You can also do it somehow that you use the rope from one side and then from the other side. Yeah, this is totally up to you. And then the rope is again packed in the backpack and you are ready, or I am ready for the next pitch. Oh, I almost forgot. I'm climbing with a single rated rope, in this case 70 meters. And if I have to rappel and get down to the ground again, with 70 meters of rope, you can only rappel like 35 meters because you want to have the ability to pull it down. So I bring a thin tagline. So this is a 5mm aeromet cord. It holds up to 800 kilograms, so super strong enough to use it as a tagline to pull down the thicker climbing rope. Alternatively, it's also possible to use, for example, the Beal escaper, but for this time I've chosen the tagline method. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about the setup? And again, I want to make sure this is not super safe to do. This is how I do it. You can do it completely different. And this is just how I did it. It worked well, especially with the slack management. Here with these 2 screw links, this was super nice. I also tried to add friction to the screw links with the petzl tanga, so some rubber on the screw links, but this was more annoying with the slack to manage it, so I just used the screw links alone. Thanks for watching. I think this was a super long video. I'm looking forward to be watched by you again. Make sure to check out my other videos, ice climbing videos, for example. Thanks. Bye.